There's a lot of doubt heading into this week. And to say it again, they left no doubt, and that's good.
We saw the things that we needed to see to at least feel like things are moving in the right direction. Miami of Ohio comes in this week, another MAC school. So, there's been talk. Notre Dame has not fared well against the MAC. And now, granted, they haven't necessarily lost like they did to NIU, but they've had some real close games against the MAC schools over the last decade. I would quit scheduling them, I think, at this point. But we got Miami of Ohio coming in to South Bend this week, and Chuck Martin, the head coach at Miami of Ohio, former coach at Notre Dame at one point in time.
Never good.
So, it'll be interesting. And who knows what sort of secrets Northern Illinois, being conference partners with Miami of Ohio, who knows what sort of secrets they maybe shared about how they solved the Irish. But
do you think they do? Or do you think there's a competitive rivalry where they say, get out of here?
I don't know. It depends. It just probably depends on the coach's relationship. I don't know if you heard this little tidbit, though, but the Northern Illinois coach actually reached out to Marcus Freeman and was like, hey, man, I'm here to help. We're here to help however we can moving forward in your season. If you would like to know, some of the things that we saw,
know? Yeah.
Well, if you would like to know of how we basically exploited you, the things that we saw, I'd be happy to share that with you. And Marcus Freeman took him up on it. It's just
he should, because you're never going to see those guys this season again.
Yeah, they'll never play them again. Probably.
And they're going to share. They're going to now get asked by every other team that Notre Dame has to play. They're getting a phone call, right?
Probably,
because they're like, hey, can we get that Notre Dame tape? Because look, they did exploit them.
Yeah.
Right. So Marcus Freeman wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't get that, spread it out to his coordinators, and they look at it and say, we need to shore these up. We need to fill these gaps. If they don't do that, then they deserve to get fired.
Yeah, I'm proud that Notre Dame has a coach that's not too proud to take that advice and information.
Just too proud to actually open up the offense. But so they're 28-point favorites at home. We'll get to that one now. How do you feel about it? You gonna cover?
I feel good. They should cover. If to build on last week, they should cover. I think that we want to keep seeing them take steps forward. That's just it. Let's just take another step forward. Let's put two good performances together on both sides of the ball. That's progress, in my opinion. We did. I hate saying we. I hate fans that say we. It's just so tough.
You're part of the team, man. You line up with them and get that gold helmet on.
I know. Notre Dame, they did lose 3 players against Purdue, 2 offensive linemen and 1 defensive lineman for the season, most likely. One of the offensive linemen may return. It's still up in the air. But the interesting part is on the Notre Dame offensive line, the 2 guys that came in, they replaced the 2 starters who got injured were replaced by 2 more experienced guys. So it's Notre Dame did go with the young talent on the O-line when it came down to it. And so they have some more experienced guys with maybe not quite as high of a ceiling, but a lot of starts under their belt and a lot of game experience. So it's nice to have that to fall back on as a coaching staff and things like that. So let's see how those 5 guys play together. And you got Louisville waiting here in next weekend. So let's get those 5 guys playing together as a unit, kind of knock the rust off a little bit, get that familiarity, and obviously get the win, move on to Louisville.
Well, let's stick with Homer talk. So Rutgers travels to Blacksburg to face my Hokies. Now, Rutgers is a program that we used to beat up on, I'm not going to lie. But now that they're in the Big Ten, Greg Schiano, the coach there again, after success, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Virginia Tech, again, a slow start, decent finish against ODU. And I feel like they're one of those teams that is just not going to knock your socks off in the first half, but they're going to take control against inferior opponents. 3.5-point favorites at home. Look, Rutgers, I'm not going to sit here and tell you is a good program in the Big Ten, but they play in the Big Ten. They play top-tier talent year after year. Greg Schiano has seen it. He's also coached in the NFL, not very successfully. I'm just not convinced that Virginia Tech is a tough football team. I just feel like they're a soft football team. And if there's one thing that Greg Schiano does not have, it is soft football teams. This game, I say this every week, I hate this game. This game makes me nervous.
You sort of answered the question, but I'm curious if there's more to it. What do you think is missing right now from Virginia Tech's football program?
I can't believe I'm going to say this. A tough head coach.
I think it's too nice.
Maybe. I'm just not convinced that Brent Pry is really any different than Frank Beamer in the approach. I think that the community of Blacksburg likes a guy like Brent Pry because when they had Fuente was the exact opposite. Didn't participate in anything in the town, was kind of prickly, all football, one of those delicate geniuses, is that whatever Trump said? But like the whole point is he was completely different and people didn't like him. He rubbed people the wrong way. Brent Pry is a guy who had been there before, right? He's from the area, not Blacksburg, but like from Southern Virginia. And he checks all of those like social boxes. But the football team itself, like they have no business looking this soft this year. And they just do. And I'm sorry, that is a reflection on the coaching staff. And at the end of the day, a reflection of the head coach. I'm not saying he's a soft man, but the team is soft right now and it's got to go somewhere. And I'm sorry, I'm looking right at the head coach.
So do you think that maybe there's a lack of accountability a little bit when it comes to maybe the assistant coaches or, of course, down to the players on the field when there are mistakes, like maybe they're not being pushed hard enough?
It's very possible. Look, I get it. Okay. Today's player,
I know you're at practice. Come on, man. Give me the.
No, but today's player is different. And I think we can talk about this just in our workplaces and going out in everyday life. Like people that are 20 years younger than us are different. They think differently. They respond differently. They are coached differently. They have to be coached differently. But there is a fine line between being a player's coach. I feel like, man, only a few of them get it right because it's so difficult to be the guy that the players like, but also be the boss. And look, at the end of the day, these kids are getting paid, but you're their boss. So like player coaches don't work in NIL as much because look, they're getting paid now. Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't think that it works, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
I think it's interesting because you could say that being an asshole drill sergeant style coach doesn't work either.
It's a fine line.
I think it's a fine line. And it really comes down to like, you can be whatever kind of coach you want to be if you're winning football games. I mean, like Kirby Smart comes across like, I bet you he's hard to play for.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
That dude seems like he will get in your shit in 2 seconds. You don't care who you are. But you know what? When you're winning football games and you got a couple national titles under your belt, you can get away with that. You can do that. Same thing with maybe being a player's coach that's more like the Jimmy Johnsons of the world, right? When you're winning, you can be that player's coach. Because you've got the chops, so when you do need something out of your team, they'll make sure they take care of you, this and that, because they know you're leading them to the right place. So we talk about time, winning solves a lot of problems and rights a lot of wrongs and all that stuff. So be interesting to see where they go. We did say, I think early in the season, man, I remember talking about how we would see how this Virginia Tech team handles adversity. Now that there's a little bit of expectation around the program, and so far not great, right?
I would say not great. They need to look physical, right? They are a team that has a great running back, and their offensive line has just not looked physical. Now they did in the second half against ODU, but that's ODU. I want to see this against top tier opponents. I want to see this against a team that is going to match you, right, hitting you in the mouth. And this is the kind of game that I want to see. I want to see how they respond in the trenches. I want to see how gritty they can be. I want them to win that kind of gritty football game, get out of town, and be ready to go for the next game because it's not going to get any easier. The ACC slate is not going to be easy for them. But look, I'm a little worked up because I want them to do well. Like I want them to be better.
And let's just be honest. Like Virginia Tech is not, more often than not, if to win the games that they would need to win to be contenders, they're not going to be the most talented team on the field in most cases, right?
Nope.
And so when you don't have the most talented team on the field, you need to at least be able to hang your hat on or fall back on that, like we're going to play hard. And we're going to play hard for 4 quarters, blah, 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 blah. And at the very least, this team's going to know they were in a ball game. And so you can't be the lesser talented team and the less tough team. And now they're kind of both a little bit.
Yeah, right now that they are. You're absolutely right. So we got 4 games to talk about really quickly as we move on to the NFL. So we're going to kind of go through these a little bit faster than we normally would. But Illinois traveling to Nebraska. Nebraska is 7.5-point favorite at home. Both of these teams, I think, in the Big Ten are one of those, can they be sleepers in the Big Ten, and which one has arrived? Now, we did talk about this in Crunch Time, which we're going to post tomorrow if you want to listen to who we picked, but I kind of like Nebraska here to win the football game outright. Not talking about the spread here because I think they're playing at home. I think they have a quarterback that's got some moxie, but don't cut out the Illini because they have some tough, gritty wins. And Brett Bielema, I think, is the head coach there. Not only loves himself some barbecue, but he knows how to win some football games.
Well, I think that Illinois is, they've been where Nebraska is right now. I mean, Nebraska is more talented than Illinois has been the last couple of years, but Illinois was supposed to be where they are now. Last year, everybody kind of expected them to, like Illinois is going to be a team to be, reckoned with, so on and so forth. And it was probably a little premature, right? And they hadn't quite gotten it together yet. They've sort of worked through some of that stuff, and now this year they seem to have hit the ground running. They're prepared for these challenges that lay in front of them. Nebraska might be feeling themselves a little bit, and there've been a lot of media, a lot of talk around Nebraska and about how good they're looking, and they looked really good. But I just feel like Illinois is more like on a business trip here, and Nebraska is more like, I don't know. It feels like they're kind of, they're feeling themselves a little bit. I don't like this game, man. If I'm a Cornhusker fan, this game freaks me out because I feel like it's just two teams that are in two different places right now, and the place that Illinois is in currently lends more to them getting a win in this sort of a situation.
I think if they were at Illinois, I'd be with you on Nebraska fans hating this game, but you do feel a little bit better when it's at home because it is easier to play in front of your home crowd. Lincoln Riley and USC traveling to the Big House to play Michigan. Now, this is going to be something we see every single year. This is a matchup that still, to me, doesn't feel like a conference game, but here we are. It's a conference game. Michigan is a team we said last week was a shell of themselves, and if they're going to disprove us and call us assholes, this is the game that they're going to do it. I think you believe that it's going to be a little bit closer, but that USC is still going to pull out the victory, and I just feel like Lincoln Riley, I don't know. Maybe he's gotten some things together and he's going to win some of these big games, but this could be a statement win for Sherrone Moore early on in his tenure.
Yeah, possibly. I think that with the quarterback change that happened in Michigan this week, sometimes it's not always about going with maybe who you think the best guy is, the most talented guy. Sometimes you just need to shake things up a little bit. And maybe this is, I don't know, maybe the locker room is behind Orji a little more. But this could be the sort of thing that lights a spark under the team and gets them going. And we'll see kind of, what sort of learning curve is in place for Sherrone Moore throughout these first few weeks and where he's at. Similar to our conversation about Nebraska and Illinois, though, granted, Michigan coming off a national championship, but we've discussed here, the cupboard is bare, right? They are essentially rebuilding. I mean, I don't think that there's any other way you could describe it. And so, Lincoln Riley has already been through this. And, they are finally, I think, they are ascending at this point, or at least supposed to be. A lot of the working out the kinks should be behind him by now. So I feel like they're more maybe primed to get this win. But, they're going on the road nearly across the country into a tough environment. I know there's a couple tough places to play in the Pac-12, the old Pac-12,
Camp Randall.
Autzen Stadium, but going to the Big House, man, is it's a different place.
It's no joke.
No, it's for real. And I think that I do expect, though, that Michigan's going to keep this thing close. I don't necessarily expect them to win, but I think that Sherrone Moore is going to shut some people up, myself included, by the performance that they put together this Saturday. I anticipate that Michigan's going to they're going to be game, man, and they're going to show up and they're going to keep it close.
If they hadn't played Texas, I think they'd be in trouble. But having played Texas, be embarrassed by them, I think that's an opportunity for Sherrone Moore to go in, coaching staff go in. I agree with you. They learn a lot from that experience, but I think USC is just still more talented, even though it is a road game. Another
USC by 40.
Yeah,
is what that means.
Yes. So another game that doesn't look right on paper, but is a conference game, Tennessee and Oklahoma. So Tennessee has looked amazing so far this year. And I think the big story is obviously Tennessee's head coach, Josh Heupel, returning to Oklahoma, where he was fired by Bob Stoops as offensive coordinator back in the day. And obviously there's a lot of history there. Now, this is a game where that could be a distraction. Tennessee is coming in looking really good. I think I texted you that they were up 37-0 at the end of the first quarter against Kent State, and they obviously have looked great. They look good against NC State on the road. I wouldn't consider NC State a powerhouse by any means, but that's probably the best team that they've played so far. But this is going to be a test for them, and this is one of those I feel like a lot of SEC people are saying, Oklahoma, if you want to be considered an SEC team, got to win this game.
Not only got to win this game to be considered an SEC team.
You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. You got to show up. I think that there's more distractions surrounding Tennessee than there are Oklahoma in this case. Sure, people are talking about it being, Oklahoma's first SEC test to see if they belong. But with all the Heupel stuff, being a former quarterback at Oklahoma, fired as the OC. Obviously, there's a lot of hype and expectations around Tennessee this year. They're a very good football team, but Oklahoma is not Kent State.
No.
Or even NC State. So and it's it's on the road. That's another place it's difficult to play. And I think that the fans there in Norman are going to be jacked. They're going to be psyched, ready to go. It's just a lot of little storylines here. Obviously, welcome to the SEC for Oklahoma, all the Heupel stuff. But I feel like there's been less distractions around the Oklahoma program this week. They've probably been more focused, or at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I expect the Sooners to hang tough.
Last but not least, Utah at Oklahoma State. State of Oklahoma has some good games this weekend. So Mike Gundy, and you got Cam Rising over there. Now, Utah is favored on the road here. Now, this is the kind of game that both of these squads historically would lose, right, in their quest to win their conference. But somebody's got to win here. I think Oklahoma State, in my opinion, because of that Arkansas win, they get an SEC team coming to town. They have to go to overtime, but they get the W. And Mike Gundy, again, he's been there for a long time, seen a lot, and hasn't won a lot of the big games. Maybe one of those guys we talked about before, because he's a man now. He's 50. But this one's going to be interesting because I think it's going to be super, super tight. And you got two older quarterbacks, which is something you don't see very, very often. But what do you think about this game?
Well, Mike Gundy and Cam Rising went to high school together, I think, so there may be some familiarity there.
Cam Rising's in his 8th or 7th or 8th year of eligibility. Now, injury had a lot to do with that, so give the guy a pass.
But yeah, a lot of experience on both sides at the quarterback position, as you mentioned. A game both these teams have historically struggled in, so, despite their best efforts, one of them is going to have to win. But I think whoever does win this game really puts themselves in the driver's seat. In the Big 12. And I think that, some team like Kansas State might have something to say about that down the road. But for right now, these two teams are looking very strong. And this is the first sort of tipping point for who's going to continue to ascend to the top and who's going to have a hole to dig themselves out of. I don't know that the Big 12 can, I don't know that you can say confidently that the Big 12 is guaranteed multiple bids to the playoff at this point in time. So you don't want to count on that. You're going to get one for sure, but it just depends on how things shake out. And we've talked about the SEC. Of course, the Big Ten's going to get a few and whatever. So, which there's a whole narrative there. Narrative there is Notre Dame a bid stealer? You know what I mean? Like when it comes down to the end of the season, but it's going to be a good football game. Excited to watch. I think it's going to be a well played football game. I think you're going to get that when you have two experienced quarterbacks. Going to be a great environment in Stillwater. What a weekend, man! What a Saturday to live in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I agree.
Two big-time football games. So
yeah, shout out to all of our listeners and friends in Oklahoma.
All of our listeners in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Great weekend for football in Oklahoma. And I think that, I told you, I think the Sooners are going to be game, and I think I'm with the Pokes, man. I think the Cowboys are going to get her done.
Packed slate in college football in terms of ranked matchups. So something to look forward to.